Shopify grows your business no matter how far or big you grow. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Whether you're selling your fans' next favorite shirt or an exclusive piece of podcast merch, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. Allbirds, Rothy's, Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow, grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in.
This is The Planted Runner. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic. Have you heard this old joke? How can you tell someone is a vegan? They'll tell you. I believe that one of the things that stops more people from going vegan is the stereotype. The term vegan conjures up images of angry protesters throwing red paint on people wearing fur, or those self-righteous relatives that judge and lecture their family members every Thanksgiving about the treatment of turkeys. I haven't eaten an animal product in 12 years, but even I don't want to call myself vegan. I prefer plant-based because it feels more friendly and inclusive. But on the flip side, it's also more vague. If your diet is based mostly on plants, you can call yourself plant-based even while eating meat. I suppose I prefer to be friendly and vague than an angry vegan. However you choose to describe yourself, plant-based, vegan, plant-curious, flexitarian, or omnivore, there's overwhelming evidence that eating a diet that is mostly made of whole plant foods is ideal for health and longevity. But how do you actually do that well, especially as an athlete? Let's find out. Welcome to The Planted Runner. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic, and my mission is to help you improve your running, your mindset, and your life with science-backed training and plant-based nutrition. Today, we are going down under, speaking with Kate Galley. She's a vegan health coach, personal trainer, and author who has helped thousands of people transform their bodies and their plates. In this conversation, we'll go over what the common struggles are going to an animal-free diet and how to overcome them, how to create a simple, sustainable, and delicious plant-based lifestyle, and of course, we'll address the protein issue. How much do you need as a runner, and how to easily get it from plants? Kate also opens up about some really touching topics that I was not expecting. So if you're ready to figure out the plant-based puzzles in your life, this one's for you. If you're new to the show and curious about all the ways I can help with your running, nutrition, and mindset, the best place to find me is on Instagram at The Planted Runner, or head to theplantedrunner.com/link for a quick list of all the ways I help runners just like you. You can check out my book, The PR Team, get a custom running plan made just for you, and so much more. That's theplantedrunner.com/link. At the end of the show, right after the Mental Strength Minute, I'll announce this month's winner of our Apple Review contest. If you'd like to be next month's winner, all you need to do to enter is write a 5-star review of the podcast on Apple Podcasts. One lucky runner will receive free access to one of my online running classes. Reviews are truly the easiest and most impactful way of helping this show, and I'd love to read yours. Before we go any further, I want to say a quick hello to all my listeners in India. I just found out that The Planted Runner is the #2 running podcast in India, and I am just so honored. I love hearing from listeners all around the world. And now here's my conversation with Kate Galley. Welcome to The Planted Runner, Kate.
Claire, it is my pleasure to be here with you.
So we're going to jump right into this and talk about you being an angry vegan. You've admitted that you used to be. The word vegan has a lot of negative stereotypes. And you have thankfully evolved a little bit. Tell us about that.
Well, I've certainly evolved. I will say, Claire, full transparency, it is a daily, I guess, pursuit to hide that little angry vegan that wants to pop right out. I guess the angry vegan background, I turned vegetarian for the animals when I was 16, and it would take a further 23 years of being vegetarian until I saw the documentary Cowspiracy. I learned that I'd been lied to, that we have all been lied to, that if I was vegetarian for the animals, I needed to be vegan for the animals. And so I made that change basically overnight. And at that point in time, I'd already been a personal trainer for about a decade. And I kind of had a point to prove that I could be a really fit, strong, healthy vegan. I think we probably have that in common. And the anger came, I guess, because like so many of us, I assumed that the loving, compassionate people in my lives would respond the same way that I responded when they found out the news that I had to share with them, that we'd all been lied to. I started attending activism events. I hung out with other angry vegans, and I love all my angry vegans out there. We need you. We need those animal rights activists. Here's the heavy part, or a fun part first. A few years into my angry vegan journey, my dear mum rang me and she said, Katie, don't know what we're going to do about Christmas. You're the animal rights activist. Your father's all about his meat. I don't know what to do about the food unless you want to mastermind a vegan feast and sell the family on it. And I was like, amazing. I'll mastermind the feast. Not so sure about selling the family. But anyway, it was amazing. So much deliciousness. Went really well. My dear mum, after that Christmas, said to me, and background, I'd been emotionally blackmailing my parents to try and get them to watch What the Health. And strange fact, that didn't work, right? After the amazing family Christmas, Mum said, Katie, will you watch What the Health with me? I did. It resonated with her. She said, I'm going to try this plant-based thing for two weeks.
Okay.
Fast forward a couple of years. Mum was now very much plant-based, becoming more active as a vegan. Our relationship strengthened times a billion with that. I was so proud of her, Not good for her relationship with Dad, who was pretty much the angry vegan. And here's where everything changed. 2.5 years ago, I got the phone call from my father that I always thought I'd get from my mother. And I always thought it would be Katie. It's your dad. And no, it was Mum's. It was Dad saying, Kate, it's your mother. And Mum had died suddenly.
Oh my goodness.
And from the healthiest, most vibrant, most generous, loving, my number one person, many people's number one person, she had died suddenly. And that was as huge and overwhelming as anyone, who
of course
has lost the person they love most knows. And this is where the angry bit came in. I had so much sadness and devastation, and I basically had no room to carry that anger at all the non-vegans in my life. I was so overwhelmed with all the grief and the sadness that I just literally had no more room to carry that anger. And also, with Mum, I had no regrets. Our relationship was amazing. She knew how much I loved and respected her. With Dad, it was different. I thought, I need to work on this relationship. He's my only parent left. And this might resonate with some of our listeners. If there's someone in your life and you have huge conflict with them because of a difference in values and beliefs, you don't know how long they're going to be here for.
Right.
And that was when consciously I needed to decide, you need to let go of this. It's not working for you. It's not working for your relationships. It's not a happy way to live. Definitely not letting go of the vegan, just letting go of the anger and frustration and hate I often felt.
Yeah.
So that's the long story to letting go of that angry vegan.
Well, Dad's still a meat eater, correct?
Dad is so much still a meat eater. We have made progress, and it came with me reaching out first, but from someone who has never cooked so much as a baked potato for me since I became vegan over 8 years ago. He has now started cooking the odd full vegan meal occasionally, which I'm going to take as huge progress, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Literally no one in my family is vegan. I mean, they're vegan around me. My kids, I have a vegan household, but when they're with their dad or when they're out, they're going to order non-vegan. And I've done the whole Thanksgiving, the whole Christmas. I've cooked and cooked and cooked and done all the things. But yeah, I'm the only one waving the flag. So I understand where you're coming from. People don't respond to hate very, very well or telling them what to do.
Right? Yeah. Judgment. Yeah. Not so effective.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you telling their story. It's tricky. I think that is actually something that people struggle with. So you want to be plant-based or vegan for whatever your reasons, health, environmental, or the animals, and you're really convinced of it, but not all the world is convinced too. And so you have to stick to your guns a lot, which is hard. I mean, how do you do that? How would you advise a new plant-based person when it becomes inconvenient?
So the sticking to my guns was possibly too easy for me, right? I've always been okay being the odd one out, but I think of all my dear clients who do find it hard, and that's what I'm going to refer to. And it's the same with any big lifestyle decision or change that you make, be it plant-based or just upgrading your nutrition in another way. And I think getting effective at communicating why you're doing it and how it's for you without the judgment is a really good first step. So far as the actual nutrition side of it, I would say go for those easy wins and those small tweaks with the meals first that you eat that are almost vegan and just need that small tweak to become vegan. There are many of them once you think about them. How I coach myself now is to be more like my mum and to lead with love, compassion, and deliciousness. So even if your family's not receptive to being full vegan or plant-based, generally, most of them are going to appreciate the huge effort you put into a family celebration where you're veganizing their favorites. And again, you're going for the low-hanging fruit, so to speak. So the roast veggies and the huge vibrant salads and the pastas and the bakes and you're not throwing a cauliflower steak on the barbecue. That might be too much for them, Go for those easy wins that are going to be delicious. They'll appreciate the effort. I would say also, so far as your own journey, at the time that is best for you, seek out the emotional fuel that's going to fortify your resolve, because there will be struggle street times. And if you've decided you're doing this for your health, for example, you want the health benefits. However, it does get inconvenient at times. So seek out those documentaries, those activists, those doctors, those books that have the fuel that fortifies that resolve that you turn to when you need it. I guess final thing I would say is release the pressure on yourself a little bit as well. Like in the same way that you don't want to be an angry vegan, you don't need to be a perfect vegan. If you slip up, it's not the end of the world. Stop with the grief and guilt and move on at the very next meal, like you would with your training if you missed a training session. The very next training session, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I want to scroll back a little bit to the deliciousness part and how important that is, because when I went vegan for health reasons. So of course I made everything just the most ridiculously healthy possible. And everything I made tasted like cardboard. And no wonder I couldn't convince my family to eat my food that tasted terrible. But I evolved, and my partner, Michael, I would say he fell in love with me, not because of what a wonderful person I am, but I made him, I made him scalloped potatoes with cashew cream, and he has a dairy allergy, and he hadn't had scalloped potatoes since he was a little kid. And I made them for him. And he was just like, I have found my person.
Claire, that is beautiful. I hard relate to that. When I became vegan, as I said, I'd been veggie for 10 years. I was a personal trainer in a very bro gym, and they were basically waiting for me to fail. And I had a point to prove like you did. And I wanted to hit, let alone the macronutrients, I wanted to hit all the micronutrients in every single meal. I was adding spirulina to everything. Like, my food was disgusting. And so that's another tip as well. Even though I love the food that I eat every single meal, every single day, now, when I'm cooking for other people who aren't vegan, I still make it more extravagant, more delicious, just to sell them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's tip into the athlete side of it, because it's one thing to go plant-based if you're just sort of a normal person leading a normal life. But if you do have big fitness goals, whether it's in the gym or out on the road or out on the trails running, your nutritional needs, whether you're plant-based or omni, are going to be different than a sedentary person. So how do you address that for plant-based athletes?
I think one of the problems that many of us can have when we first transition to a plant-based lifestyle is the lower caloric density. Amazing if you're in the gym with a fat loss goal. However, as an athlete, if it's just about the performance, then you really do need to be aware that you're not swapping out something super substantial like your chicken or whatever and swapping it out with just spinach.
Right.
You really do. Like, caloric density is real. You might need to eat bigger meals. I know we're going to get to protein. Something surprising for me was that I actually needed to eat more good fats than what I was used to. I'd come off a background of being scared of carbs and scared of fats and all about the vegetarian protein. When I became vegan, I introduced a lot more plant protein and a lot more diversity and variety in that protein. Also, I actually introduced more plant-based good fats. So not the processed stuff, but the whole food fats like the nuts and seeds and avocado. The amount of that, if you're an athlete, that you can enjoy every single day is absolutely abundant and amazing. So that's kind of the first, I guess, that the caloric density and the quantity and size of your meals is kind of probably my first advice. And always I turn to quality as well. So focusing primarily on whole foods. I personally think there's a place for those more processed transitional foods as treats and as ease and just some deliciousness. But we don't want to build the majority of our meals around those things. We want them more to be those whole plant foods.
Yeah. So what would be some of your favorite dishes for, let's say, a really hungry runner?
So again, I will go to what you loved before. If you're new to plant-based, go to what you loved before you became plant-based. So they might be huge pasta meals with all the veggies. And I now go for the high protein pastas. Like, it's amazing that you can get your pastas made from your chickpeas and lentils and rice and quinoa. And you're getting like 20 plus grams of protein just in the pasta before you add everything else. It's really whatever you like. Big, substantial salads. You're probably not going to have a curry before a big run. I'm a huge fan of oats. And when we come to the protein part of our conversation, maybe we can go here now.
Sure, let's go.
I have an approach to protein. I mean, we're huge in the fitness industry, right? And I'm wary of the fact that many of the plant-based experts, or too many of them, might lead with, you don't even need to lead with protein. You don't even need to think about protein. Protein's in all plants. Just don't even worry about it. The omnis need to worry about fiber. Yeah, protein's all over the place. However, we do need to be conscious about how we find it.
Mm-hmm.
I advocate 1 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilo, not pounds of weight. And for someone like me, that might translate to 15 to 20 grams of protein per meal and snack. And so it takes a little bit of work up front where you find the plant-based proteins that you like, that are easy to prepare, that are nice and quick and delicious. And I have a little, system which I call the 5 S's of plant-based protein. And it's just a fun way to look to get protein more into your every single meal. So shall I run through that?
Run through it. Let's run through it.
Run through it. So the first S is the star, and this isn't always the case. It's not like that meat and veg that you used to have before you were plant-based, but sometimes plant-based protein is still the star in a meal. So maybe that's like the lentils in your curry or the tofu in your stir fry. Sometimes it's there shining and it is the star. So that's the first S. Up next, we have the scatter. And that's where you have your plant-based meal. And it might be a little bit low on protein. So you scatter those handy little proteins over the top. Maybe it's the hemp seeds or the lentils that you batch cook on the weekend, whatever it may be. Next up, you've got the stir through. And that's where you have your oats at breakfast. And oats is amazing. You've got it with your nuts and seeds and fruit. Still not enough protein. I'm a fan of a quality plant-based protein powder that you just stir through to up the protein ante in that meal. Next up, we've got the side, and I do this all the time. You've got this amazing meal. Maybe you've prepared it for all your Omni family members, and it's a delicious, abundant meal, and maybe they've got their meat on the side because they just have to. And you have your baked edamame on the side. 17 grams of protein in 1 cup there.
Right.
Whatever it may be, just to up the protein ante again.
Mm-hmm.
Final one, the sauce. And it's amazing what you can just sneak into sauces, right? Whether it's your silken tofu, creamy, cheesy sauce, or whether it's the white beans you sneak into something, the nutritional yeast. You can have a really protein-packed, delicious sauce to just abundantly pour over all your meals.
We'll be back with more from Kate right after the break. It's the best way to spend an afternoon after your long run? At the movies. Your hardworking legs get much needed rest, and of course, there's plenty of snacks. If you love going to the movies, you're going to want to hear this. Regal Unlimited is the all-you-can-watch movie subscription pass that pays for itself in just 2 visits. You can see any standard 2D movie anytime with no blackout dates or restrictions. When you want to watch a movie in a premium format like 4DX, IMAX, RPX, or Screen X, your Regal Unlimited membership plan gets you into those premium experiences at a reduced cost. And with Regal Unlimited, you won't just save money on tickets. You'll also save 10% on all non-alcoholic concessions items. Yep, you not only save on movies, but snacks too. So if you're planning to see 2 movies this month, you need to join Regal Unlimited. Sign up now in the Regal app or at regmovies.com/unlimited and use my code PLANTEDR24. That's planted, the letter R, 24 at regmovies.com/unlimited.
Greetings from Evergreen Podcasts. We're rolling out a listener survey and we want to hear from you. The information in the survey will help us gather statistics and in turn make our shows more appealing to advertisers. I know most people don't like ads, but this is one of the only ways our shows make money and help keep their lights on. We promise it will only take a few minutes, but the impact on our podcasts will be tremendous. As a token of our appreciation, we'll randomly select 1 lucky participant each month to win an exclusive merchandise package from Evergreen Podcasts. Head to evergreenpodcast.com/listenersurvey to help a show and possibly get some free stuff for doing so. We can't thank you enough for the support. Now back to the show.
Welcome back to The Planted Runner and my conversation with vegan health coach, Kate Galley. Yes. Okay. I love it. And I promise that we did not speak ahead of time, and everything you are saying is exactly what I preach about. Amazing. How much protein to have. God bless the plant-based people, but yes, we do need to focus on protein, especially as athletes. I am, in support of all the numbers you just threw out. So I think everybody should, at least for Americans, convert how many pounds you weigh into kilograms and run those numbers and just see what it looks like. It might be more than you think. It might be less than you think, but it is something you need to think about every time you have a meal.
Yeah. And it's a little bit of work up front, right? I get worried when I go into this and I make it sound too hard, but any change to your lifestyle that's going to have huge positive benefits, whatever it may be. I remember when I was first vegan, I had a non-vegan boyfriend who was a bodybuilder. He spent so much more time and energy calculating his macronutrients and meal prepping than what I did. So you put in this energy up front just so that you're aware, and then know that every single day you're not having to calculate how much protein in your meal because it's in the top of your head now. It's fine.
Right.
You've got your go-tos.
Yeah, exactly. And I like that you compare it to any other healthy change. You know, when you first start running, it's a bit of a hassle to get up in the morning before the kids wake up and get out the door. But before you know it, it's something you don't even think about, like brushing your teeth. You know, it's the change part that is the hardest. But once it becomes routine, it's not that big of a deal.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, there are some people that complain when they go to a vegan diet. They get all excited and they're like, well, I'm going to try plant-based. And then they quit after a while and they say, well, I didn't feel that good. You know, I felt tired all the time. What do you say to people who come to you like that?
So there's a lot here. The first thing is, where are they coming from? Did they bounce into this vegan lifestyle or even plant-based lifestyle after following something much more restrictive? What were they, or something restrictive? I mean, a plant-based is the absolute opposite of restrictive. Were they doing keto or carnivore first and just bouncing around because they had some health issues? Did they go straight to a full raw or full fruit plant-based lifestyle and they didn't do it well enough? So where they're coming from, where their health is at initially is probably my first step. Next, I would say, are they focusing on restriction and what they're cutting out of their diet rather than abundance and diversity? I can share 100% eating meat for 16 years, veggie for 23 years, vegan for 8+ years. The way I eat now is so much more abundant and diverse and joyful. However, I guess I made a conscious effort for it to be that way. And so it does take that focus on what you're giving your body rather than what you're eliminating and avoiding and not eating. Next up, I would probably say we're back to the caloric density. Right. Just really do the numbers on your meals, right? Especially if you're an athlete. Like I worked with a male personal trainer who became vegan or plant-based. It was for his health. And he ate these huge salads. They weren't something I would be satisfied with. And he had a lot more muscle than me. And, you know, it didn't last. And it was purely because he wasn't eating enough. He was starving his poor body. At that point in time, when you're making the changes and eating more calories and more diversity, I would also say reconnect again or connect with the why behind why you did it. And if it was the health initially, which it was for my dear mum, it's funny that after a period of time of leaving animals off your plate, your heart opens to the plight of animals. You'd compartmentalized it before and what was happening to them before when you were eating them. When you haven't been eating them for a while, your heart does open. You will be more open to seeing those horrific documentaries like Dominion and Earthlings. And if you watch those documentaries, I firmly believe for most of us, that is going to be the resolve that gets you to the plant-based doctor or naturopath or nutritionist that helps you when you do have these health issues or energy issues that people might have, and you have the willingness to fix it rather than just bounce to the next fad or diet or introduce some steak or eggs or whatever, you know, breaks my heart to see people do.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, I mean, for me personally, I did it for the health reasons. But as you know, it's been how many years? 12 years now. It's really nice to have the environmental effects and the animal effects and not just the sentient beings of the animals. It's the conditions that your food is being raised in.
True. So true.
It's so unsanitary. Just, I mean, that's a whole rabbit hole that we could go down, but but it's really it's really powerful. So on the flip side, there are people who go vegan because of the animals, and then they end up eating, Coke and French fries, junk food vegans. We see that a lot too. And they say, well, I'm vegan and it's not really working out for me because they're only eating non-animal products, but not focused on their health. So it's really a puzzle to figure out, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And these vegans are my heart. I love them. I love to work with these vegans because they are in it for the animals. And the first thing I would say is that it's not going to be a vegan world overnight, sadly. If you want to be in it long-term, sustainably for the animals, you need to look after your health. And also like secretly behind the scenes, like rocking around in a fit, strong, healthy body is also an amazing way to advocate for the animals. You don't want to be that sickly stereotype that just is not true. However, you don't want to be it. So to my dear vegan animal rights activist friends that just love all the junk food, there's a small place for that. However, it's a treat food, right? We need to prioritize the one ingredient whole foods that are nourishing for our bodies.
I like that perspective. The next complaint that I get from people is that to really do a whole food vegan diet, whole food plant-based diet, it's just too expensive. It's unrealistic. What would you say to that?
I'd say hard disagree with that. The whole food part, especially if we're eating those transitional processed vegan foods, for sure they can be more expensive. They're only coming down in price. However, again, they're treat foods. If predominantly we're focusing on whole foods and we eat seasonally, and when something's ridiculous, like broccoli is here in Australia right now, you buy the frozen, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's just, it's finding those little tricks. It's batch cooking and batch buying. So you're buying what's on special. You're cooking in big batches. You're buying the frozen when something that you love is just a little bit too expensive. Absolutely, especially as an athlete, not being afraid of whole food carbohydrates like I used to be for a decade or so before I was vegan, because carbs are one of the cheapest foods we can buy, right?
Sure.
So if we're basing our meals around these whole foods that in the plant-based world, often they're carbohydrate and protein with fiber at the same time, like amazing, your legumes and such. Again, it's learning those cost-effective alternatives that you and your family like. And I guess another tip I would say is try food prepping rather than meal prepping. I'm huge on meal prep, loved it. Got a bit bored with the same thing 5 nights a week, right?
Yes.
So the difference for our listeners with the food prep is you batch a whole variety of things that can turn into a whole bunch of different meals according to what you feel like. So you're going to batch a whole lot of sweet potatoes in one go and some spicy lentils and maybe some tofu ricotta, whatever it is, so that you can turn to these items on the go during the busy week and make those cost-effective, delicious meals.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I have done meal prep in the past, but honestly, I don't want to give up my Sunday to cook all day, and I don't want to eat the same thing. So the thing that I do, I call it strategic leftovers.
Yes,
so whenever I cook multiple servings so that I can have it for lunch the next day, or maybe freeze it for a couple of days. Although I will say, with 3 teenagers in the house, this strategy is not working as well anymore. My grocery bill is out of this world. So I got to come up with some more strategies.
a strategic way to hide those strategic leftovers or something.
Oh, I do.
Right?
I put them in the freezer in a bag of broccoli, and I know they'll never be touched.
Oh, amazing.
Yes.
Good trick.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear some of your clients' success stories. Tell us some stories about people who have come to you, have been struggling, and have had a great transformation.
So my focus as a personal trainer has always been more about body composition and in the early days, weight loss, as opposed to fitness so much and training athletes and all of that. And I'm lucky enough that my clients in Sydney, I've recently moved to Queensland from Sydney, they had been with me for such a long period of time that they were all meat eaters when I was vegetarian. And they stayed with me that whole period of time, and they watched my transition from veggie to vegan apprehensively. And bit by bit, not enough of them, but bit by bit, many of them introduced much more plant-based into their diet. No full vegan, however, much more plant-based. And I saw several of them where without the effort, the weight just fell off. Mm-hmm. Decent body composition, changing numbers of fat that comes off while retaining the muscle that we worked so hard to retain in the gym. So body composition that comes easily when it hasn't for years is probably a first one. Sinus issues resolving and frequent colds and difficulty breathing and always getting sick after frequent travels. That is another common result from eliminating the dairy, I would say, more than anything. Another one is lowering of cholesterol and blood pressure. I would say my dear mum's journey was the one that I was most proud and most grateful for. She had been someone who had lost and found 10 kilos constantly during her life, never overweight, but never her ideal weight half the time, and then finding that weight again. And when she ate plant-based, the thing that she said about it was she got to eat all her favorite meals in a generous quantity, never feeling restricted. And it just happened naturally. She really didn't have to think about her weight anymore, which was amazing. So there's some of the results that, again, just happens without huge focused effort and without restriction.
Love it. I love it. So do you have any tips for people who are plant curious? They're not ready to go 100%, and maybe they never will, but they want to incorporate more plants into their life and they want a more plant-centric lifestyle.
So if they're just plant curious, I say most important to have fun with it, to remove the pressure, to just focus on what you feel like today, to find those vegan plant-based chefs online that cook the meals that you can imagine having the time to cook. Now, I often look at people and I think, wow, I wish I had someone to cook that for me. The food looks amazing. You have to find the people that you relate to where you could and will cook their meals. There's so much deliciousness out there for free online. So seek out those mentors, seek out the ones that are really positive and happy and healthy that you like to spend time with via YouTube as well. I would say lower the bar to raise your chance of success. Don't go at it like Claire and I went at it, where you're trying to hit every single macro and micronutrient goal in every single meal. Just have some fun with it. If you have a particular type of cuisine that you love, be it Italian for me or Mexican, learn the spice blend that cuisine tends to use and start using that in your go-to meals to, you just swap out the meat for the tofu, the chickpeas, whatever it is. It's all about the herbs and spice blends. It's all about the way that you cook your food as well. So I would say that's another huge one. Give your veggies the same respect that you used to give meat, whether you marinated it or charred it on the barbecue, or the love that you gave it. Your veggies absolutely deserve that as well, and absolutely will respond to that as well. Finally, I would say, don't be afraid of a recipe flop. right? We've all had bad meat meals and we've all had bad vegan meals, and don't judge a vegan meal by one little flop, whether it's your own cooking or whether it's at your recipe. Just try the next meal. There's going to be an amazing version of it. So give it another chance.
Well, I think that is a perfect place to wrap it up, Kate. Where can listeners connect with you?
Website's the best place, Claire. That is strongbodygreenplanet.com. Via that, you will find my Healthification podcast, where I chat with passionate and compassionate athletes, activists, authors, doctors, entrepreneurs, and that is my heart. You will also find the Plant Positive Journal, my book, via my website, strongbodygreenplanet.com.
Perfect, Kate. Thank you so much for being on The Planted Runner today.
My huge pleasure. This was fun. Thank you, Claire.
And now it's time for the Mental Strength Minute. Fortify your mind in 60 seconds or less. Today's topic is flexible expectations. As runners, we can become very rigid with our expectations with ourselves. A certain pace should feel a certain way. Your easy pace is a fixed number, and your goal paces become set in stone. But when heat, humidity, hills, stress, or something else out of your control comes into play, we tend to ignore those and stick to what we think should be instead of what is. Many runners fail to adjust expectations in difficult conditions and end up being very disappointed in themselves. So the trick is to hold your expectations lightly, be flexible, and adjust when conditions are tough. Yes, that means you'll likely need to run slower than you wanted to, but you'll get the effort just right. This month's winner of our Apple Podcast Review Contest is JS Tech, who wrote, "Newbie Runner Gaining Inspiration, 5 stars. I really enjoyed the episode about the spirituality of running. What an unexpected topic. As a new runner, I felt relieved to hear experienced runners say the first mile is always the hardest." JS Tech, your mission is to email me at claire@theplantedrunner.com. You'll win free access to one of my Sprint Sessions masterclasses, where I'll teach you to become a better runner in just 30 minutes. If you'd like to win next month, all you have to do is write an Apple Podcast review. I read every one and choose a new random winner. Thank you for listening to The Planted Runner, part of the Evergreen Podcast Network. Don't forget that you can win free access to one of my Sprint Session masterclasses just for writing an Apple Podcast review. So be sure to write yours right after your run today. Reviews are the #1 way to boost this show's reach, and it's a great way to tell me what you'd like to hear next, because I read every single one. Have a great run today.
Women's Running Stories, where we explore the intersection between running and life. Because every woman who is committed to a running journey has a story to tell, and this is where you'll find those stories. I am host and producer Cherie Louise Turner. I'm a 53-year-old runner, and together with original music by musician and runner Cormac O'Regan, we bring these inspirational stories to life. Please join us to fuel your adventures.